went live while I was trying to mute the stream in the other window. Rookie move, but hey, how's it going? It's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I am very, very excited to introduce the two guests that I'm going to welcome with me to enter the Poserverse today. You have seen me tweeting and Instagramming and other social media-ing about it all week since the end of last week. So before I bring him in, there is one thing that I want to talk about really, really fast. I know that a lot of you who have been watching have been actively making donations to the Ocasio family's GoFundMe for Edwin's wife and kids. So I wanted to just kind of see if it'll pop up. There we go. We are making good strides in terms of helping them get some of the money that we need. You can see that in just under 2 weeks, almost $19,000 have been raised. So I'll keep the bottom bar scrolling along if you've not made any donations. And if you're able to even chip in $1, it's something that the family would very much appreciate. So before I bring in the guests, I'll play my lovely little interview introduction, and we'll see if I can get the guys to chuckle about it backstage. And if not, it's at least entertaining to me. So here we go.
When I'm flying in a plane or I'm on the street, there's a lot of famous people that I like to meet. They shake my hand and never ask my name, and they start asking questions that are always the same. Hey.
All right. I am very excited to bring into the stream the authors of the new to us who only read English comic book, Vlad Dracul, issues 1 and 2. You can, hope and pray that you find some, but thankfully, and I'm very excited to report that both issue 1 and issue 2 have been ordered for a second printing. So if you missed out on the first go around, shame on you, but you can rectify that by picking up a copy or pestering your LCS, emailing them, writing down the diamond code, anything to get more books, more copies of this book in the hands of the people. But I'm excited to bring both members of the creative team into the stream, Matteo Dracul and Andrea Muti. So here we go.
Hi,
gentlemen.
guys.
Hey.
Hi. Hey.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. And for those of you who don't know, it's only 2:30 in the afternoon for Andrea because Andrea is in Florida. But it is 8:30 p.m. for Matteo in Italy. So we were able to connect across multiple time zones to be able to make this work. So I'm very excited.
It's amazing.
The first question that I've got for each of you is, can you tell us a little bit about who you both are in the world of art, comic book writing? I know Matteo writes some novels, so give us a little rundown of who each of you are professionally.
Go ahead, Matteo.
Okay. Okay. Well, what can I say? I'm a full-time writer today. I think that my most successful work is tetralogy focused about the Medici family and about the Italian Renaissance. The entire tetralogy sold something like 1 million copies just in Italy and has been translated in 20 languages in 40 countries around, included English language, of course. And then, I've written something like, I think, 14 novels. And this is my in fact, it's my second experience about comic books. I've written graphic novel together with Alessandro Vitti entitled Red Red some years ago, just in Italian language. And now together with Andrea, I've written, this trilogy about Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Third of Wallachia, the voivode, and we started together. And the work has been published in Italian by Feltrinelli, editore, and then I think the year after we were able to publish together with Scout Comics here in the United States. So this is what I made, more or less. I'm also involved in a video game project that will be out next year, and on an audio series for Audible in this next autumn here in Italy. So this is what I do. In fact, I'm a novelist and script writer or screen player or whatever you want to say. And at the same time, I'm also how can I say? Professor at the University of the Link Campus University in Rome of interactive storytelling. So that's it.
I like how the list is like 4,000 things long, and you're like, that's it. Yeah, a bunch of books, comics. I'm going to ask you about the Medici series and Dark Renaissance, because these are two things that, as a reader and a history teacher, things that I'll pester you about. So, Andrea, your job is to give a longer list of things that you do to one up your partner in this one.
Yeah, thank you so much. But it's only a cover, because between me and you, I am undercover CIA agent. So please. But I do comics since 31 years, so I am a pretty old boy in this field. I did many publications for all over the world, Europe, United States, really old boy. And I did storyboarding for the movies, for the TV shows, for theater, and illustration for books. This is my field. It's my best focus area since a while. So I look very young, but I'm not.
You're young at heart, but old in the body.
Yeah. So this is my job. This is my life. And with Matteo, with a long friendship, the result of a long fighting to do something together finally. And that's it. Absolutely.
And
I'm ready.
And I want to say that I'm very happy to work with Andrea. It's it's a kind of goal for me. I was looking for this for I don't know how many years, because he's a great guy. And he's the most rock and roll part of me, and so it's wonderful to work with him because he's a legendary artist, in Italy, but not only as you know, and so it's a privilege for me to work with Andrea.
No, it's the same, of course. It is the same. It's the same for me.
It's my total fanboy, honest opinion that if this is how you all deliver in the first time that you work together, I need more of the two of you on a book, because it's just
whatever you want.
An immersive experience that sings. So we'll get to me probing to see if we get other things in a second. So I did some reading on both of your backgrounds, and to say that you all got educations in things that are tangentially related to writing or comics at best might be an understatement. So, Matteo, I didn't see what your undergrad was, but you have a PhD in European contract law.
Yeah.
What made you jump from Europe, being a doctor in contract law, to writing primarily historical kind of fiction pieces?
Well, I mean, that's the reason is that I didn't like so much to be a PhD or whatever you want, in European contract law, So I'm a big American rock and roll fan, or fanatic or whatever you want to call it, So I remember that when I was a child, my dream was to be a rock star. I love guys like the Black Rose or I don't know, Rival Sons or whatever, and of course Allman Brothers Band and Leonard Skinner and so on, and so when I was a child, I would like to be, like a Chris Robinson or Steven Tyler or whatever, and I remember that my plan B was, okay, if it doesn't work, as a rock star, I would like to be, a novelist. And I have so here, nerd. So this is my plan B. And when I was able to leave with my work, as a novelist, so as a full-time writer, that was, amazing for me, and today I'm lucky enough to do whatever I want here in Italy, and speaking about historical novel or historical comic books or whatever, and I'm so lucky that some publishers around the world are interested in for my work, so this is amazing, so the reason is that I really don't want to be I was a PhD doctor, in fact, but that was not my future, so that's why I'm here.
And I mean, the short answer could be, as someone who has to teach low levels of contract law to kids in my government classes, or with my students who do debate in the United States, is that contract law is mind-numbingly boring. Like, contract law is the equivalent of my voice. It's not soothing.
No. Your voice is pretty better,
All right. Andrea, I may be able to see some stronger connections between your education or your undergraduate degree and jumping into art, but you majored in geometry and then attended the comic school.
Yeah.
So why was making that jump always the plan? Does an understanding of geometry kind of help your perspective when you are asked to draw literally anything that you've done across your storied career in the comic industry?
It's a pretty fun story because, I was looking for the college, right? And there was a pretty good school in Italy, in my city, in Brescia, actually. And there was a very popular art school, very expensive also. But to be allowed to do that, you have to pass a test, okay? I did the test, and they told me, it's not for you. The art is not for you. Oh, seriously. You have some problem with colors, anatomy, maybe. Fuck. What do I have to do? So the other option was to do the geometry, was artistic enough, but my goal was the art school just after the college. I did 3 years. It was a funny story. That's why.
I like that. Now, did you send any of your portfolio of work back to that person who many decades ago was like, no, you're not good enough, and you just send them like your name and awards with
it's a classic, right? It's a classic. Yeah, I'm not good, right? It's a classic.
I like that.
Steven Spielberg, the comparison is crazy, but Steven Spielberg once he just made nothing about that. Steven Spielberg, the first time he proposed the shortcut of Star Wars, Scorsese told to him, "What is shit? What is shit?"
Yeah, I remember.
George Lucas. But Steven Spielberg told, but Steven Spielberg was a friend of him, and hey, man, this is very cool stuff. So
he was right.
Yeah. So I mean, it really feels like you all landed your plan B in both fascinating ways, because you both have storied careers as writers or artists that you both have been very, very successful in terms of either the niche of kind of things that you like to write about, Matteo, that you see a growing market for people who are interested in historical fiction, because it becomes understanding the history and then seeing how people play with it, that those are good, engaging stories. And then Andrea, to look at your just biography or your like vita, your resume of every single thing that you've worked on, I think you've drawn almost everything under the planet. And
Yes,
I
pretty much.
think you both landed where, you know, you were intended to be. So I think it's a good thing. And the two of you can become examples of what I talk to my students about, who think the moment that they leave high school and have to set foot in college or university, that they've got to have their plan figured out. Like, y'all had solid careers to fall back on if the, you know, creative side did not work out, but you all were able to play and go through and let life happen, which I think is very, very aspirational and inspirational.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My favorite question to ask people who are as busy as the two of you are is, I know, Andrea, you might have like more comics that you're into just because you're kind of keeping up with the art. But do the two of you have particular things that you like to read in any medium, either as a fan of that genre or style, or to kind of fish around for inspiration?
Yes, I have plenty of it. You know, I have some stuff. I think that I need just 2 minutes just to show what I really like to read. You know, so speaking about comic book, this is Witches by Scott Snyder. This is a wonderful story.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Path of Earth by Zach Kaplan and, of course, Andrea Mutti. This is an amazing sci-fi take. Then I have, for example, Django and Zorro by Tarantino, Wagner, and Esteve Pols. Or this is very inspiring for me. Highway to Hell by Victor Gischler, who is a great friend of mine, you know, Burchielli and Francesco Mattina. Or I love this one, you know, Northlanders by Brian Wood, Davide Gianfelice, and the entire series, of course. I love, for example, Mike Mignola, Gotham by Gaslight. This is just an example, of course. And I love Pat Mills and Simon Beasley, Slain.
Nice.
Scalped, you know, of course, by Aaron and Guerra. Caliban Helheim, published by Oni Press. Draw by Joel Jones. And, of course, I need to mention this book. This is the book, man. You know, when I read 300, you know, I was so completely, it was so compelling, you know, and I was asking myself, finally, you know, I'm able to find a comic book, a graphic novel that, you know, is able to catch me from the very first page till the end with a very simple story, but so powerful, you know, thanks to the text and, of course, the art by Frank Miller. You know, that was very inspiring, because it convinced me that that I need to try to do something, you know, in comic book about history. And that's why I would like to try to retell or tell probably for the very first time the story of Vlad III of Wallachia the Impaler, you know.
Yeah.
So these are some of my inspiration stuff, speaking about comic book, you know. If we talk about literature or movies or whatever, I think that I need 2 days or so. It could be a very long process, you know, so I don't want to take too much time.
Yeah, but that's a very impressive.
I'm sorry.
Nope, I'll let Andrea get settled before. All right, you ready to tell me all of me and the viewers, everything that you kind of draw to for either reading as a fan or as a source to kind of inspire your art?
So look, all the books Mateo shows to us is my same taste. I still remain a really hard reader, so I read anything, everything, and really, really curious. Although no limit to be curious about any other artist, especially or the only artists or writers. It's very important for me to dig the different styles. For example, I love Sean Murphy, as I love Mark Mignola, or as I love Felix Jimenez. So totally different styles, but for me, it's very inspiring because every single artist can be really, really useful. Could be really a teacher, teach me something about the shots, the panels, how the composition of the page. And I am not this kind of artist that look only his own art. Very often happen something like that. It's a limit. It's a pity. It's pretty shame. So I am an artist, so I have no time to read anything because I am the artist. I'm arrived. This is what's my kingdom. So I don't care. For me, it's the country. Every time I go in a bookshop, in a comic store, for me, it's kind of, like to be in the Universal Studios. Wow, it's amazing. Have to be, still to be, and still will be. So for me, that's why. Of course, I prefer the high vibe solution about the storytelling. Atmosphere, I like that. I love when the pages grab me into the pages. Because I'm not going to draw something, I'm going to tell something with my story, with my storyboarding, with my pages. Very often I feel that the artists, they are very focused to show that they are able to draw something. Mm-hmm. So this is my deal. I want to tell to the reader, I am able to tell you something. It's totally different from my reader.
Nice. Well, and it's nice to see that you all have like a wide breadth of tastes. And I've been back into reading comics for a year, for the first time in about 20 years. And I've gone on the same kind of preference journey that y'all have, that just over here behind me, in a year, I have amassed 12 short boxes of just about every kind of story under the sun. And like, I read the grittiest of horror to historical fiction, to books like this, I sadly enjoyed Transformers My Little Pony when it came out 2 weeks ago, right? That, it's good to see that a lot of creators kind of look at and view comics in the same way that consumers and fans do, that it gives us a feeling like we're on the same kind of wavelength, to know that we're looking for the same kind of things. Mm-hmm. I'll pimp somebody in the chat real fast. So if you all work together again, or you're on separate projects and you're looking for a letterer, Justin Birch, who is lettering literally like 40% to 60% of the independent comics that I'm reading right now, does a fantastic job and a masterful job. So if you maybe need to add a third person to your trio, you can check out my man Justin. Or if you want to see some very impressive hauls of toys, Justin is also quite the impressive toy collector.
Nice.
We'll say hi to a couple of other folks in the chat real fast before we move on. So Danielle says,
"Hey,
ciao Dan,
ciao bello."
Oh, and he, your friend is also studied to be a letterist, so maybe we can have a font off between the two of them. And then my buddies from Michigan, the Comic Burrito, I may have recently kind of started a Metal Shark Bro fan club. So now I'm a Metal Shark Brony, I guess. So I'll wear that mantle with pride. The last question that I'll ask the two of you before we finally dive into the book: what kind of passions or interests do you all have outside of the world of art and literature? What kinds of things do you do to blow off steam, or have
many?
Plenty.
Yeah. You before,
Ye-
please. After you, after
So
you. Yeah,
sure. Well,
absolutely.
I am plenty of passion. The most great passion for me is traveling, fishing, for example, kayaking, hikings, theater, movies, reading. A lot of reading. I'm a huge fan of history, and the nature for me is a important part of my life. I'm a pretty wild man, and for me, it's the real contact with the real world, because too often maybe the artists live inside the office, inside the studio, so
Mm.
be creative, and I need very often to move my mind over the horizon. Makes sense? In the
Yeah.
canyons, for example, I made some crazy adventure like last year with the sharks, for example. It's very exciting because it's a kind of, hey man, you're alive, but with you, no, you're not alone. And for me, it's very important. I'm not suffering about this kind of situation that the artist is a strange man, strange person that live in a cave with strange no time for working alone because or dressing by dark clothes. This for me all the shit. Real people, very concrete, very solid stuff, and we can talk with me anytime with anything. So I'm a nerd in part, but I mean a nerd with the soul, not just because I don't think that I'm special because I'm doing with my job, because every single job that you love is a special job. So
Yeah.
maybe because we are few people that do comics, so seem special, but we are not special. We are, I mean, we have to do something special for ourselves and for the others, and that's it. Very, very simple and very easy way of life.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like the idea of you being an extroverted nerd. That
Yeah,
yes,
totally.
you are a nerd, but you are in the trenches, living your best life and enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
I played soccer for 20 years. I did kickboxing for 3 years. I made real life.
we'll talk football at the end, and not this American pigskin crap, but what we call soccer over here.
Soccer.
We'll talk some footy maybe after the interview, because I'm a big fan of the game.
Nice.
All right, Matteo, you are up. What do you like to do beyond your literary world?
Well, of course, I like to go to. I like movies, of course, and I like music. I'm a big NHL fan. This year I was able to have the NHL TV, so I'm going crazy. About Philadelphia Flyers or Montreal Canadiens. I think that the reason is because when I was a child, I lived in Canada for I think something like two years and a half. And that was a very strong imprint, for my life. Probably, if you live in Vancouver, ice hockey is a classic. It's the sport, that you can play and watch and whatever. But of course, I play tennis. I love to do that, and I like so much to travel. One of the other things that not new, but my work is able to give it to me, is to travel around the world. For example, last year I've been in Colombia. I never been there, to talk about my books, but after that, I was strolling around with my wife in Bogota, for example. That was a pretty fantastic place, like to be in, I don't know, for example, Transylvania. Here we have Vlad the Impaler, and
That is
and I love so much, to be there. We have been for many times, because like Andreas said, I would like to taste a bit, history. And if you go in places like Transylvania or in many different places in Italy, of course, in speaking about art cities like, Verona or Venezia, Roma, Firenze, you can breathe, history. And even when you go and to places like Transylvania or Slovakia, for example, so Eastern or Central Eastern Europe, you're able to taste, a kind of lost world, because you have so many castles and fortified churches, and it's like to be in, I think, 16th century or something like that, So it's a kind of time journey, you know what I mean? So it's amazing for me to, to in some way. To live something that is completely different, from my table or room or studio or whatever, I'm working, So I think that I love to travel so much, together with my wife. We travel so much, and we like exotic places, and especially Gothic places, like I said, Transylvania or Wallachia or I don't know, Czech Republic and Germany and so on. So I have many passions.
Nice. And I wish to be able to travel as much as I can someday, but 3 children have slowed us down quite a bit. My wife has made it to Europe, but I have not. I've made it to Canada and Hawaii, and those are the furthest places away from Kansas I've been. All right. Before we hop into talking Vlad Dracul, and I'll tell the rest of the chat this, please feel free to ask questions at any time, and I'll kind of pop them in when we can get them, because I think y'all's questions are probably more interesting than mine, or as interesting as mine, because I'm asking questions as an excited reader or a fan, and y'all are probably doing the same thing too. So Danielle says, Andrea, apart from the amazing job on Vlad, when will you get back to draw Port of Earth?
So thank you for the question. As soon as I can, because the series now is in standby. We are working on the TV show with Amazon Prime. So big news on the other one as soon as possible, I hope. It's the long and slow process. Or it could be really fast in a while, but
All right.
Not so often.
So the reason we are here is to talk about this sexy, amazing story that you all have told. So for the people who either haven't read it, the people who are pissed that they didn't pre-order it and now they're waiting on a second printing, or people who aren't sure about what the book is, can you offer a brief summary of your tale of Vlad the Impaler?
Well, the tale is about, Vlad III of Wallachia. He was an incredible historical character. He was a prince, a guardian prince. He was able to defend and protect his land, Transylvania and Wallachia, from the attack of the Ottoman Empire. You have to think about the fact that in those times, we are speaking about the 15th century, so 1461, even if we have a kind of prologue in 1456. The Ottoman Empire was the biggest and the largest empire in the world, and it was very powerful. It was big, and Mehmet, the Conqueror, the surname was the Conqueror, in fact, was able to arrive at the doors of Vienna. So it's a story. It's a story that would like to reverse a little bit what we knew about Count Dracula, because we know pretty much about the vampire, so the literary figure, thanks to Bram Stoker, but this is a completely different kind of perspective. It's much Romanian, or I must say Hungarian, because Romania doesn't exist in those years, point of view. So a classical European point of view in some way,
Yep.
so you don't have exactly vampires, but you have this prince, this dark prince, who was able to defeat or fight against the most, the biggest army in the world, with something like 10,000 warriors, because he's fierce, and he wants to defend and protect his land, his children, of course, and the love of his life, So we have also a love story. It's in fact, it's a love and war story, and it's very interesting, I think, because I don't remember so many comic book stories about the man behind the legend. We know so much about vampires and about Count Dracula, but we don't know so much, in a very precise way, about the historical character. So that's the reason why we want to do this trilogy, Andrea and I.
Nice. Andre, you have anything to add?
Yes, in the same time, we have not forget that Vlad Dracul was a son of its own age, the very violent, brutal, slashery, but was not different from the other counts or kings or emperor of the same age, because at the time the violence, the life was a little thing. You can have a life, I can lost the life in a quick. So that's what, no problem. And very often the people don't understand that, oh, this crazy guy is a very violent empire.
Yeah.
Wow. But the Ottoman was not easy, was not funny. In fact, he spent the first years of his life at the court of the Ottoman Empire, the master. So it's the same story. The world is the same, big or small, but the culture was very, very violent at the age. So you have not to be surprised about this kind of stuff, because the Pope was the first to do. Okay, kill them all, no problem, and God bless you. So it's. Was not because was
Exactly.
evil, exactly, but not because he was a bastard, but was the time, was the age.
Yeah.
Today maybe it's different, but not too much.
And
So-
just one more thing. We think today that's he was a kind of serial killer, all that kind of stuff, and whatever, But in fact, if you go to Romania today, he's a kind of hero. He's like
Yes.
Che Guevara in Cuba, for example. You know what I mean. So because he wants to protect, he wants to defend, and he loved his land like I think every American love his country, or Italian or whatever. So we want to work about this kind of feeling, that was lost through the years in history, I think, because there's a kind of German tradition that was trying to demonize, saying that he was son of the devil and all that kind of stuff, and blah blah blah, And but it was a completely different kind of story. If you see with the eyes of the Romanian or Hungarian, folk.
Yeah, if you kill one man, you're a murderer. If you kill 1,000, you're a god.
Yeah.
Okay, this
And
is
I
the way to
mean-
say.
Yeah.
I'll transition. I know we haven't talked about the first issue yet,
Yes.
but like this image from the beginning of issue 2 is, when we talk about Vlad the Impaler historically,
Yeah.
like this is what we talk about, and the notion of him being, a Che Guevara-esque figure, right? He has killed a bunch of people and achieved this godlike status because he was repelling invaders from the homeland. And I think that becomes a cool thing about the story. And
Yeah.
you answered my next question I had on the list a little bit. That you both kind of mentioned that when we hear Vlad Dracul, we are immediately expecting a vampire tale because of Bram Stoker's inspiration of him to be the alpha vampire. But I like that we don't get that nod here. So was it a conscious choice to say, screw all of this vampire stuff? We want to talk about someone who was one of the heaviest, like, influential figures in, like, what what's the Treaty of Westphalia, before like countries started becoming to exist in Europe, that you wanted to tell the historical figure, or the tale of the historical man who was eliminating Ottoman influence to stand up for the name of his people in Europe?
Yes, this is exactly what we would like to do, and then, you must remember that if you study history, you can find so many things. For example, I'm thinking about Hunger Games by Susan Collins. I love the trilogy. In fact, it's an amazing one. But if you think about the tribute stuff, and whatever, I don't want to say that the inspiration was Transylvania or whatever, but I must confess that if you read, the historical stuff, you can discover that Transylvania was obliged to, have a kind of 1,000 children as a tribute to the Ottoman Empire. So to the Sultan. So it's historical stuff, in fact, and she was so great to take, I don't know if from that or whatever, but some real facts, and to mash up and to make something completely different, of course, and this is the magic of literature. But at the same time, you can find so many interesting stuff and stories in history. That's why I love to write historical novels, or historical stuff, or comic book, historical comic book, because and it was very interesting for me to discover how enthusiastic were the American readers about this thing. It seems to me a little bit, speaking about the feeling, that they were waiting for something like that, a different kind of perspective, to know something different, something new, because, I love the vampire stuff. I'm a big fan of Seth Grahame-Smith, Abraham Lincoln, a vampire hunter, just for saying, he's a crazy guy. He's a genius, okay? But I do like to have a kind of a European perspective. I would like to take something new to the table from my perspective, to the United States, because I think it could be just a little bit more interesting than I try to do something like an American guy. I'm not, so I'm not able to do better than an American, you know what I mean? So I do like to have a kind of European approach. And I think that Andrea's art fits perfectly for this kind of stuff. It demonstrates so many times, thinking about Rebels, or many other stuff that he made, so that's the reason why I'm very happy to work with him. That's one of the reasons.
Thank you, man. Graphically speaking, I try to put on the paper that it's this kind of story are very important. The details about the costumes, the horses, the castles, the weapons, all good. So we are very close to the reality, much as I can. But the most important thing for us was nail the atmosphere, the violence.
Yeah.
Was not important all the details. Enough, but not super important. It's not a historical book, like a school book. It's about a epopea. It's a kind of saga. It make sense. So have to be very powerful about the soul of the character, the soul of the age, the powerful of the the landscape, the ambient was amazing. The snow,
Yeah.
the Carpathia. This is the important for me, and began to grab the reader inside the story. So this is the point.
Yeah. Well, and like I'll agree that your European perspective definitely offers a great take on this, as Andrea and I were kind of talking about before this all started. The owner of my local comic shop and I really got into Cullen Bunn's The Brothers Dracul, which is about
Yeah.
their time when, you know, he's being raised by the Sultan, and we
Yeah.
see the ruthlessness of him. But then in like the last two books, it turns into how he kind of becomes vampiric from his interaction with like the beings that Mehmed's son is fighting. But like again, where I think you all nail who Vlad is in issue 1. I hate this ring light. Right when he's approached by the Sultan's like diplomat to come ask for the 1,000 children and the like the monetary fee he has to pay for, right? Very quickly, it's off with this dude's head. Send for another messenger. This is my declaration of war, and I think that's the Vlad the Impaler that we learn about historically.
Exactly.
So I really, really like it, and it almost feels like Danielle is feeling the vibes of where this interview is going. Because my next question is the book that we are just now getting to read in the States through Scout is either it's a translation or a republication of your comic Vlad, which was published through Feltrinelli.
Yes,
So
correct.
Aside from translating it to English, are there any other changes in the story or the art? Like, are we reading the same book in English, or are there changes to the art and the story arc?
No, I think they did a really such a good job. I want to thank you, Scout Comics, and especially Paola Borghesi, that's a good friend of mine. She translated all the 3 issues, and she did an amazing job. I think the language, for example, we really don't know how was the language at the age, okay? But it's not important, again, because we have to put the reader in contact with the book, with the story. The very important. Our goal is maybe after this reading, some readers take a look about the novels about Vlad Dracul or historical documentaries about Vlad Dracul. So inspiring something or someone to do something.
Absolutely.
No, it's just a step forward. It's a little. It's a kind of jigsaw. This is a little part of a big picture. So this is the goal. This is the intent. No, not only for me, only for you, but it's for everybody.
I like that answer. That's good.
Yeah.
Matteo, you've got anything to add?
Well, I just like to say that, we started with this Italian edition by Feltrinelli. So this is the first one, the second one, and the third one. So it's chopped in 3 like Scout Comics did. So Scout Comics was very, tended to do something that was, like in Italian, and Paola had made a hell of a job. And of course also Joe Rodriguez, the letter, and all the Scout Comics team, so James Pruitt and James Hake and Brandon Deneen, it's amazing to work with them, because they are so pushing and aggressive, and they are doing so many exciting, projects. They sound very fresh to me as a publisher. It seems to me that they are growing pretty fast, in the American market. So it's the perfect partner for a work like this, and they were, courage enough to publish in the US, and and that's crazy. It was crazy when I read that we are going to the second print, because I said, oh wow, that's amazing. I never dream about that. So it's unbelievable. But like I said before, the Italian version, so the original one was exactly the same. It's chopped in three. And the story is exactly the same story. So I think that you are reading what we made in Italian. Of course, we are able to work also in English, but we need, of course, as Italian, a pretty good work, a very good work from letter and adaptation, and translation, of course, because we are not American.
Yeah. Well, I'll agree with you that I think Scout is the perfect landing point. That in the last 2 months, I've become a big like homer for singing the praises of Scout. And I know if Comic Burrito is still around, like I've been on their live stream on Saturday nights where we're just singing the praises of everything that they're doing and how diverse all of the work is, from fantasy tales to White Ash to horror tales like It Eats What Feeds It. They've got a Syrian refugee tale called Yasmin that is on its second book, that is a very like realistic modern tale. And then I think your book is a perfect landing point with them, because it's got like that gritty horror feel just because of that's who Vlad is. But it also has historical realism, which is nice. And they're one of two publishers that I constantly sing the praises of, where I feel like there's literally a book for every kind of reader. And the moment I got the press release that 1 and 2 were called back for a second printing, like I screamed. And I think I got that email in the middle of DC Fandom when I was writing like some trailer reactions and that kind of stuff. I immediately stopped what I was doing for my paid contributor gig to get that press release out on my blog, because I was like, I love this shit. I have been singing the praises and people have not been able to find it. If you love it now, or you've bought into me or anybody else who has talked about it, now you can see that we're right on a book that we're excited about. So I think that's an awesome feeling. And I know that I'm now going to go on the hunt, that I only hunt for variant covers or different covers on books that I'm really, really into. So I think I'm now going to hunt down the Italian version, because while I may not be able to speak Italian, those covers that you showed were, I mean, if those were the noticeably different things, right? You saw a ring, you saw a crest, and here, like the A cover of number 1, Vlad kind of riding his horse kind of across the land. The variant that came out, right? I like the idea of literal blood on his hands. That I think that's a very clever choice. And I just like the contrast between the bloody hand and then all of the negative space between it and the title. And then, you want to talk about a showdown between
this is crazy
and the and Vlad. Like, that's the noticeable difference, but I think those are cool mechanics for people who may not be as familiar with Vlad in the States as we are.
Mm-hmm.
So while we wait for Andrea to run back this way,
I want to show you in super preview the third cover.
Great.
I'm going to make you big. And I can pull that image up too, but that looks so good. And
the dragon.
Because that's where Vlad gets Dracul from his father's like society that he was in, because he was seen as the dragon, and what Dracul is the translation of dragon into
Exactly.
the language of the time.
Yes.
So I saw you all tweet yesterday, like, we can get Vlad Dracul 3 in stores in the States today. And I was like, how did I miss this? The Scout book I am the most excited
about. But it was my
weekly pull list video. And then Scout was like, hey, Diamond Done messed everything up with all of the distribution stuff. So we get it in September. So without spoiling the end of the trilogy, give us a little taste. What can we expect to see in book 3 in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Well, I don't know, but if you know the story, you can imagine something, I think. But you know, no, I don't want to say anything, because I think that
it's not the end. It's not the end.
No, it's not the end. It's not the end. Yeah. Okay. This is, we can say that it's not the end, because what I can say is that we love so much this character, and we can have a kind of open end. Okay. This is what I can say, and we hope to be able to come back with Vlad, maybe, I don't want to say next year or whatever, but in the next years, maybe it could be great. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to figure out historically, is that there are 3 points in history where there is this clash between Vlad and the Ottomans, where like he's successful and then gets conquered and then breaks free. Like, there are those waves. So that's the one thing that haven't been able to place, where it's like, is this the one that ends poorly for him? So to know that there's a possibility of a second trilogy makes me really excited. And I know every time I ask the question of, will we get to see a second arc? Everybody's answer is, it depends on the sales numbers. So a second printing of the first 2 books has to be a good omen.
Sure.
So if you all, like me,
we have to launch a crowdfunding for the second trilogy.
But if you want more of this, go sell out the 3rd book in the trilogy. Go make the demand so high that there has to be a second printing. And Scout, like any other good publisher or business, is going to go, oh, this is a hit. We made from this what we might get from a 6-issue series. We can get more, and we get to see 2 lifelong friends work together for the second time on a new venture on the same character. So buy the books. They are so good. And if we know that it's not the end, is it safe to assume that book 3 is going to be quite bloody?
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to be many blood around. The blood,
absolutely.
The blood is a kind of constant, right? Is normal. Had to be. But love also, even love. Love is very, very important. Yes.
Because I don't want to spoil.
It's a romantic. It's romantic.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, because I like the conversations he has with his wife versus his mistress. Like, the conversations with his wife were like, you're cool because you continued my bloodline, but I don't love you. And she's like, but I love you, say it back. And he's like, no, my mistress is who I love.
But it was very typical in that age, right? In the Middle Age, was the typical story, right? The wedding was a kind of political wedding for the powerful, for the lands, for the legacy of the families. But love still exists and still resists.
Nice. I like that we get to play with both arcs. And I don't want to spoil book 2, so there are like 6 pages left in this. But after the big bloody battle in the middle of the book, you get to see the Sultan's response. So, in knowing that shit is about to get really real, I'm excited to see how this first arc concludes, because a lot of what you've done is true to history. A lot of what you've done is kind of playing in some parts. So I want to see where your, the imagination in Matteo's writing and just the grittiness of the art that you deliver on this, Andrea. Like, I like this because it feels like I'm looking at a firsthand perspective of like someone who was drawing the battles as they were happening. And that just feels cool, like a historic, like, I don't want to say cave paintings because that's not true for the time, but it looked like if there were a battlefield artist, like, it's got that war-torn darkness to it that you don't see in a lot of art, that everything has to look 1,000,000% perfect in a conventional way. And there are definite times where your art looks conventional, but then there are a lot of places where you will abuse the concept of the line with either the form or the color, that just makes this a book that, like, I've read both of these books since they've come out about 15 times because it's so.
I would like to mention that color art by Vlad Popov, who is a wonderful colorist from Serbia. He's a great colorist. He has made a hell of a job, and because like Andrea's art, even colors are very important and capture so good, not only the setting but the atmosphere and everything we need on the page, and then I would like to remember also that 90% the facts that you find were for real, because are historical facts. So there's no special effects or whatever, it's for real, because I studied many biographies about Vlad the Impaler. The most important is the one by Matej Kazaku, and you can find the most part of everything I've written, and so it's pretty interesting. Like Andrea said, this is just a kind of a point or deck to or a small part of something bigger if you want to read more about the character and the historical character.
Is this a place where you think your law background has helped a little bit with you writing historical pieces, that with law you've got to know every bit of your research, every precedent, every decision that's been made on provisions of contracts or the law itself? So do you think that meticulous version of research in the legal field has impacted the way that you like to research historically?
Yes, this is a very good question. I think that you're definitely right. For example, I remember that I fell in love with this character, speaking, of course, because some years ago I went with my wife, and thanks to my wife, to Transylvania, and we travel around, and we have been there in many places where you are able to find and see Vlad the Impaler's castles, and the place where he was born. That was the city of Sighishoara, and you can find also the original house where he was born. So that's the reason why it's very important for me to travel. Because thanks to travel you can do research and you can to be appropriate, and you can of course study, but at the same time you can touch that kind of dark tale stories, thanks to, the landscapes and the Carpathians Mountains, and it was pretty, how can I say, disappointing when I discovered that Bram Stoker was never been in Transylvania. Of course, it was not simple like today. Today is not so simple. Thanks to the COVID and coronavirus or whatever, but from here in 1 hour and a half by plane, you are able to be there. And it's a very, very, very incredible place to be and to visit. I recommend you, if you have time, maybe, I don't know, in 10 years from now or whatever, fly to Transylvania, because it's an incredible place.
Yeah.
You've definitely talked it to being on my bucket list.
Yeah, but I think that the success of this trilogy is because we are selling not what we are able to do, but we know it is different.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So it's a part of us, something really deep inside.
I like that
Absolutely.
a lot. And like I said, it fills a market niche over here, because everything that we get Dracul is vampire based. So to get the real story and conflict of the man is just, I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen it do so well, is that aside from having to read biographies, we don't have this kind of graphic representation that you all have created, which is why I love it. And it's something that I think, I would, aside from some of the sex pages, I would have no problem sharing with my students and go, you want a good representation of this conflict? Here you go. All right. The last question I've got about the book, before we talk about some of the other things that you all are doing or have done. I'm a very cinematic person at times. Like when I am reading, I really get into something because a soundtrack starts playing in my head. Like I have a very dumb physical brain that, I'm listening to this and getting like random Sabaton songs playing in my head, like some Amon Amarth. Like I'm getting a lot of like dark, like Viking metal playing in my head.
Nice. I really appreciate it, because for me it's very important. Point. Very, very important. Thank you.
The question that I ask everybody is, if y'all were to put together a 3 to 5 song playlist that you think would be the perfect backtrack to kind of enhance the reader's experience, what would it be for you?
Ooh. So for me, can I start it? So about this kind of work, I was listening, for example, the soundtrack of King Arthur, and there was it's a very powerful, very inspiring, because it's pretty much the same age, not really the same, but 200 years before, but was really, really full of energy, full of violence. You can hear the horses running on the fields, so something really energetic. I need something like that. And the soundtracks, for example, another very good ones was for the landscape. For example, it's not a difference, but the Vangelis, Vangelis, I think so. The Vangelis soundtracks, whatever, like Antarctica, for the powerful of the landscape in the quiet moment, like a snowfall on the land of the Wallachia, on the Transylvania. It seems quiet, but it's very full of power and violence under the corner. Nice. And yes, and I prefer this kind of vibe when I work on stories like that. I'm not listening to hard rock or heavy metal, for example.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm sure Matteo do. do that.
Well, I don't know. I really love to listen some. Well, to me, speaking about Vlad as a main character of a comic book trilogy is like to have a rock star, you know. So I think that prefer something more a little bit harder. So there's a kind of homage to a guitar player that I really love. You can see here, I think, Slash. So that Sweet Child of Mine is a very interesting song to listen to when you read this book, especially when you have the battle sequences. Something maybe like Make Me Wanna Die by The Pretty Reckless. It's another wonderful band that I love so much. And of course, some good stuff by Brian Adams. Maybe a ballad like I don't know, Everything I Do It For You, or whatever, you know. Thinking about the movie that was a great inspiration for the work of mine, that was Prince of Thieves, Robin Hood, with Kevin Costner, you know, and a movie that I loved. And so I think that this is some rock songs, you know, rock ballads, maybe like She Talks to Angels by the Crows, or, you know, music like that.
Nice. Well, and I think you all have proved a theory that I've been working on across interviews. Anytime I talk to the author or the writer, it is lyric-based phenomenon that the energy of the words will help set up some of their writing. And anytime I have talked to an artist, it's been soundtracks.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool to kind of see that, like, they help, like, different types of music will activate different types of brains. And I think both of those are really, really good and very respectable answers. I'm going to ask y'all a couple more questions about other things that you're working on. And I'm looking to see if I get a text from my wife that says, come release me from these children. But I have not seen that yet. So, Andrea, in looking at your website and then just a search of everything that you've done on Comixology, like you said, you've been in the business for 31 years, working with the big two to the smallest publishers all over the world.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask you 3 questions kind of based on the entirety of your career. And the first is, excluding working with Matteo and publishing through Scout, do you have a publisher or a creative team that you've worked with that you've enjoyed the most?
Look, this is a good question, but I try to reply in the same way I did before. Every time you can share the same passion, the same deal, the same, dreams is a good deal. And I am a lucky guy because I can't remember a writer that I had no good feeling. It's not, could be, but I have to say that every time I get a new deal with a new writer, Brian Wood, Colin Baum, John Evans, Scott Snyder, James Tannion, Edith Callan, Matteo, whatever, I always felt immediately something over the simple work for hire or something, because it's a kind of energy in this life. I get every single work like the first, and I want to be excited like the first time. It's a kind of newborn every time. I think this is the real secret in this work. And in the same time, I am very lucky because I did, I think, all the kind of genre: science fiction, horror, thriller, historical, science fiction, whatever, I don't know, something less, fantasy. So, and in different style, painting, black and white. I dig many different styles because not because I'm good, but because I have always a partner that want to come on, do something fun, enjoy yourself, and it's very important. And when you can feel yourself free to do something, you can discover, you can dig many different ways that was unknown before. Because who knows? For example, Vlad was an example. It's a very fresh style with the watercolor in black and white, and you will see the next project totally different again. Because the team is always a dream team. So I thank you all my publishers, and I thank you my writers because they're always open to understand or to listen to encourage me to do something different, and this is the best way ever.
Well, that's where I like you as an artist, is that I can pick up a book that you're on, and even if I didn't see your name on there, I can feel the imprint of your art. But like you said earlier, you are constantly changing the game to do new things that fit the right mood, the right feel of the book, the right script instructions. And I think that's something that makes your work enjoyable, because it's not like, oh, he did this thing again. Oh, he did this thing again. That in 31 years, you keep finding ways to keep it fresh and different. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people across the industry need to learn, that sure, some people have their shtick, but if you're, you are wired in the way where you've got the right style and the right artistic tools in that moment for the story, I think that's amazing.
Thank you. I do my best. I think to myself, never like, okay, I'm a 31 years old, so I'm fucking great. Never, never. So
I'll say that. I'll say it. So you can lower your ego, but I'll be like, no, you're a 31-year artist. You're fucking great.
Thank you. But for my side, I prefer to be really honest and always passionate. And this is the real power of this job, because this is a kind of job that you don't choose, but this job chooses you. So it's different.
If you were to look across every single thing that you have worked on, what is the one book, the one title that you've had a thumbprint on that you would recommend to someone to go, if you want to get into my art, look at this one?
It's a hard question. I think Have Gonna Be is not yet published, this one. So read everything. You have to read everything about me and wait for the next.
I like that. One where I scrolled through some of your art on on titles that I haven't read, like some of the foreign publishers that I haven't seen. There's, I think, like an encyclopedia through the art school that you went to that's like, here's a bunch of his different art. So yes, read everything, but in the description to this, I'll link that page so you can see the diversity in his art that I'm talking about. The last question is there a character or a series that you have not had the chance to make your artistic imprint on that you are dying to get a shot at?
So I did Batman for a while, and it was my favorite one. But if I can say, is an Italian character from one great friend of mine, Ivo Milazzo, and Vlad Dracul is a kind of thank you to this artist. It's the must for me, and he's called Ken Parker. I was, I think, 6 years old, and I discovered this kind of serial. It's a very adult approach about the Western style. Totally Italian approach, totally Italian team artist, and for me it was like a dream came true. And I think I have a little regret, no time to do something about Ken Parker, except
it reminds me a little bit to Jeremiah Johnson movie, Ken Parker.
Yeah. It is. It's very popular. Right. Yeah.
I'm going to switch over to Matteo now. You mentioned some of these in kind of describing your work. I'm interested in the Medici family because I have to teach the Renaissance to kids. I have to kind of use the Renaissance as a point of creativity, of art, of starting to look at scientific thinking as a starting point in history. And your Medici, is it 4 books that you've released? The first one, Ascendancy, was translated and released in English last year.
Yeah.
And Supremacy is coming this fall, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my first question is, and I didn't put the name of this award down because I'm dumb and I would probably screw it up because it's in Italian. But what did it feel like to win an award at like Italy's biggest literary prize that people like Ernest Hemingway or Ken Follett have also won? Like, what did that feel like when you got that call? And I think it was 2017.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, it was amazing, you know, and it was crazy because when you look to these authors, you know, including Umberto Eco, speaking about Italian, for example, that was another winner. You know, it's completely stunning. You know what I mean? And at the same time, it was a great prize and a great victory at the same time. You know, and like you said, probably a starting point, because when you're awarded with this kind of award, you know, you think that you're doing something good, and it's a great encouragement, you know, to continue. So it was fantastic, and you know, it was great because I think that after that award, I feel so confident with the historical genre, you know, and so it's it was great. It was a great honor, you know, but it was also a great way, you know, to want to go profoundly, you know, into the genre and to explore a little bit more to the roots, maybe, you know, that kind of tales or stories like the Medici tetralogy, or for example, I've written a book about Casanova, another one about Michelangelo. So, you know, all historical novels, of course, and every time, you know, we're speaking about some of the most important artists or dynasties, you know, in history. So it was very challenging, but at the same time, like you said, my intention is to give to the readers, you know, a starting point to go profoundly and deeper, you know, into the matter of, you know, Michelangelo art or Medici, you know, history and so on. So it's very challenging but rewarding at the same time.
Nice. The second question I have is like I mentioned, Ascendancy was released a year ago, and we get Supremacy here in a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
Yeah,
so
November.
Can you offer a quick synopsis of the series or book one to persuade us to check the first one out before the second one drops?
Well, in fact, you are able. Well, the two stories are standalone in some way, but some characters will come back, you know, and so in some way they are linked. It's very interesting because when you talk about Medici, you think about bankers and all that kind of stuff that sounds pretty boring, but you have, of course, conspiracies, you have power, you have war, sex, passions, and great artists. Because I'm writing about the cupola of Santa Maria del Fiore in Florence, so the cathedral by Filippo Brunelleschi, and then you can a little bit I don't want to say study, but learn something about the process and the architecture and all that kind of stuff, and the relationship between Cosimo il Vecchio, that was the first in some way patriarch, and the artist Cini contributes to create, and with the second one, so Supremacy, you will meet guys like Lorenzo il Magnifico or Leonardo da Vinci. So I think that there's pretty cool stuff, and but at the same time, like I said, you have battles, you have fights, sword fights, you have evil conspiracies, you have the Pope was intriguing, and so it's a very complex and interesting, I hope, plot. So you have so many lines in the water, to discover and to appreciate, I hope. And so I think that could be a very interesting trilogy. And so, every single volume is could be interesting for the readers.
Well, and it has to be interesting just based on the sheer number of languages that these books have been translated into, that you're finding a massive audience, again, because I think people are rediscovering why history is interesting to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last question I've got in this thread is, given that your genre is playing either like fairly true biographical stories to playing with like adding some drama and a little bit of fiction to make the story engaging, are there any other historical figures that you feel ready to kind of tell their story in the same way that you've done with either the Medici family or, Vlad, in either a novel or another, comic book or graphic novel?
But I have plenty of them, in Italy, we have so many interesting historical characters, but thinking about maybe comic books and, American market, maybe. Well, I have one character that is an H-bomb, in my opinion, for American market, is Countess Elizabeth Bathory, the vampire countess. I don't know if you know her, but she was the Black Countess, and she's an unbelievable character. She literally make bloodbath, and all that kind of stuff, So I think that could be a very interesting character, and a female one, So could be very challenging and interesting. And I would like to do something about her, because it seems to me that could be very coherent if you think about Vlad the Impaler, to have a kind of a female version. I don't want to say like this, but in some way she is very linked to Vlad Dracul. So and then even her character is an amazing one.
Nice. All right, Andrea, I'm going to switch back to you.
Bye.
I will make the note that finding upcoming projects from artists is very, very difficult, especially if you're working on something that like hasn't been solicited or announced. Mm-hmm. So if we want to find some other new works from you, what are some upcoming things that have been announced that we can use to check out your continually evolving artistic style?
Look, I am working on a couple of really great projects. One of is Cullen Bond, and one of is Max Visaggio, and the other was Neil Clyde. But I can't say more right now, but stay tuned because it's very, very soon will be announced from the publisher. It's a totally different approach in watercolors, horror stuff, thrilling, high vibe, one of the crazy best thing I ever did. Really, we can see the fun and the energy because it was a really challenging stuff. So I want to thank you, all my publisher, live, because it was was not easy. It was really challenging for me. But I highly suggest two of my latest stuff. That's 6 Days from DC Comics. 6 Days was a graphic novel about the Second World War with Robert Venditti and Kevin Maurer. It's a powerful story about a little battle in France in the same period of the Mohammed invasion in a little village in France called Grain, and these troopers, for a mistake, have to get their own bad future. So it's a very powerful, very sad. It's a true story based on one of the relatives of Rob Venditti. It's incredible, illustrated in color to Lee Logridge, and I think it's very sad and powerful and violent story, but it's very realistic. So I highly suggest. And from Humanoids is a very fun graphic novel. It's a noir called Mayer with John Lang. It's a kind of Lethal Weapon meets Coen Brothers comedies. It's a black noir comedy. It's very fun. It's very fun. Totally different style, but it's a good time to read.
All right. You'll have to, not violate the things that your publisher says that you can't disclose, but definitely on Twitter or Instagram, DM me who the publisher is so I can maybe set notifications for tweets from them, because you listed some authors and styles that I'm into, like Cullen Bunn, I think, could just vomit words into a script and find somebody to just like a 2-year-old to color in crayons on a book, and I would buy it. Like,
sure,
he's one of those go-to for me. So
yeah, if I can say, I saw your initiative about the crowdfunding about this family in your city. I'd like to participate, and I want to send you 2 original pages from some of my stuff, and you can sell, like a crowdfunding for whatever. And if I can help, with pleasure.
Oh, that's awesome! I appreciate that so much. All right, my last question before we wrap up, and after I ask you it, I'll drop the link to that in the chat. I, like a lot of people in comic book fandom, love video or computer games. One of my favorite games to play from a historical standpoint is Black Friday 1979. It's about the Iranian Revolution, and you are someone who is on the ground watching that pop up. In looking at the teaser that is up for your upcoming 2021 project, Dark Renaissance, it looks like that same kind of feel that really excites me. So my question is, well, in 2 parts. 1, can you pitch the game a little bit? And then number 2, since I'm naive to elements of the writing process, is writing the storyline or a script for a video game a different experience from a comic book or like writing a novel?
Well, okay. I'm super excited about that project. Well, the story is a bit about, kind of condottiero, so soldier of fortune or venture, soldier of those times that we are speaking about Renaissance, so 15th century. He's from Venice, so he's a Venetian, but at the same time, his name, Badoer, came from Hungarian, so there's a kind of Transylvanian roots or influence also there. He works as a soldier of fortune for Lorenzo il Magnifico, and his task is to find a secret and evil book that was lost, because there's a kind of monk who has to take that book from Constantinople to Florence, to Lorenzo il Magnifico and Marsilio Ficino. That book probably is a kind of weapon in some way that can give more power to the Medici dynasty and so on. But that book was lost, so the task and the cast is to find the monk and the book, of course, and to bring it back to Lorenzo il Magnifico, but through this kind of a journey that Marco Badoer, the soldier of fortune, has to maybe, of course, have different kind of encounters and enemies and brutal sword fights, and he has kind of special weapons from Leonardo da Vinci. So and you have different also kind of locations. So you have Florence, you have Ferrara, you have Venice, of course, so it's a very interesting way, like for comic book, to have a starting point to get profoundly and deeper in the study of Renaissance, starting from a visual novel. It's a little bit a big influence for this work for me was The Witcher. Of course, it's a completely different kind of stuff in terms of play, but the inspiration came a little bit from there. So it's a kind of a mixture between dark fantasy and historical stuff or genre. And speaking about the way to write a script, it's completely different kind of stuff, because it's not exactly a script. Yeah, of course, you have the script. You need to write the script, but at the same time, you have to take in your mind that the character and the player can, of course, have different kind of options or choices, and cast and subcast and all that kind of stuff. So you have a kind of thread, and then you have a sub-thread, and so you have a subplot and another subplot, and so you have in some way you have a multiple or a interactive kind of script. That's the reason why I'm not alone when I'm writing this kind of stuff. So a script for a video game, but I work together with other 4 persons, so with a complete team. And I'm in charge, of course, of the team. I would like to mention all the people who work with me. So Francesco Ferracin and Guglielmo De Gregori and some other guys, because and Fabio Masi, Claudio Masi, sorry, because it's a little bit more like for the movie, it's. Okay, of course, it happened that you have just a screenwriter, but often you have maybe 3 or 4 of them, work together. So it's a little bit. I don't want to say like in a movie because, like I said, you have many different subplots, and it's a kind of interactive stuff that it's different. It's a little bit like in John Dever. Game book or playbook, I can't remember how was the word, but if you say Lone Wolf by John Dever, you know what I'm talking about, so it was a little bit like that kind of stuff and work, so it's pretty different from comic book script.
Yeah,
I'm super excited about that. Congratulations to my pal Matteo. It's a really good deal.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm so excited.
I think the comparison that you've got, especially since you're an adjunct professor in interactive fiction, is that interactive fiction when I was a kid in the early 90s, the closest thing we got to it was like those choose your own adventure books where it's like, if you're going to do this, turn to page 98 if you want to do
exactly.
this. So I like seeing the modernized version of that thought process with any kind of interactive storytelling, from the work that people are doing in both the most complex of video games to the simplest app where you have choices, to some of those Netflix episodes that have come out, like Black Mirror or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, where you can choose the path there. So I think that's a really cool way to suck people into a different creative medium, because I would not say that I'm a creative person by any means, but in getting to make some choices in a storyline gives me a little bit of feeling of ownership. And especially if there are several subplots or ways that I can customize the play, then this is the kind of game that I'm going to play 15 different times to see all of the different elements of the story that I can explore based on the choices that I make. So I'm excited to see that too. And just like I have my students play Black Friday 1979 in my comparative politics class, this really feels like, even though there's a fantasy element, if I want to submerge my students into the time period of the Renaissance, that this is a good way to get them into
the
primary storyline with the the addition of fantasy gameplay, which a lot of them embrace anyway. I feel like I could talk to the two of you and ask the two of you questions for forever, but I'm aware that we've been on for almost 2 hours, and it's quite late in Italy, and you might have to be bracing for some storms in West Florida. So is there anything that I missed that the two of you want to talk about? Is there anything that you want to say to people who've watched this live or people who check it out on the rewind?
Well, all I can say is that it was a pleasure, and I'm very happy to be together with you and Andrea on the same page. And I'm very grateful to my publisher, Scout Comics, and to all the American readers who are so generous to put our work in second print. Please, we need a third print now, and we will go for it. And thank you so much.
Yes, the same for me. Thank you so much for everybody, and for your attention, for your passion. And it's for us, I think it's a kind of good energy to go forward to do something great in the next future.
Well, I want to say thank you for your time. Being able to have this conversation with the two of you has just been fascinating, and it makes me want to go back and look in the books again to see if I can see some of the influences that you have talked about in terms of things that you like as fans, to see, how they've bled in here. It makes me excited to check out other things that you all have both had a thumbprint on. And like you said, get these first 2 issues to a third print. Go pre-order as many copies of the third book as you can, because if they could announce the day of release that it's already been ordered for a second printing, that's the way we as fans can show that there's a demand for this fantastic story and amazing art, and get a second arc. Because if you all are enjoying what is happening in this true life tale of Vlad the Impaler as I am, then use your dollars to make your voice heard. Tweet at Scout Comics, because they are one of the most receptive and interactive publishers online with fans. Make those demands, and I'll drop in 2 Scout related. Today is the final order cutoff for Metal Shark Pro 2, the trade. So while you're making demands for books 1, 2, and 3 of Vlad Dracul, go pick up that trade too, because it's good in a completely absurd, different direction from this book. But I'll say thank you once again to the two of you, and I'll send you backstage so I can play the outro. But I enjoyed it. I hope the people in the chat enjoyed it. I'm going to go through, and if you don't want to watch all 2 hours of our conversation, I totally get that. So when this is done, I'll put some chapters in here. That way, if you want to find the different things that we've talked about to pique your interest, then I'll do that to make the video more easy for you as a channel viewer to consume. But thank you. You all have done amazing work. You continue to do amazing work, and I want to check out more things. So thank you very much, and I'll push you backstage.
Thank you so much again, and
Thank you.
God bless you guys.
All right. You can see that I, got to the point where I was totally fanboying out with both of these gentlemen, that I enjoy their work. I enjoy Matteo's storytelling, and I'm definitely going to pick up both of the Medici books. I am loving watching Andrea's art continue to change in the best of ways from book to book to book. And I think this title is a good case in point example of why Scout Comics is one of these independent publishers that I'm absolutely smitten with and continue to hype up everything that they do. So thanks, again to Matteo and Andrea for their time and talking. Thanks to everybody in the chat who, was talkative during this. Thanks to everybody who watches this on the rewind. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and have a good one.